Hello everyone, this is Dave. Welcome to Voting Trend. And in today's video, I have so many other videos I want to do, but I really need to address this Florida thing with a lot of people sitting there saying Florida is in play now. Okay, the pure answer is no. Florida's not in play. Kamala Harris is not going to win Florida. She could come close, but she's not going to win Florida. And all the consultants and all the people that are out there saying that Florida's going to win, they're probably trying to just make some money off of it or doing whatever. But the Democrats are taking their eye off the ball. North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and now all of a sudden talking about Florida. No. So in today's video, we're going to look at the two polls that a lot of people are talking about, which are crap polls, and we'll explain why. We're going to look at the demographics, or at least the voter registration change in Florida, talk about how Florida has voted in the past and why this scenario now for Democrats to win in Florida, it's just not possible. So we're going to delve into a lot of this. But at the end of the day, Democrats cannot win Florida. Now, before we start, let's go ahead and I'm going to go just to Wikipedia. I hate making Wikipedia my first page, but it's just the Florida presidential election results throughout history. Because I think for a lot of people whose electoral history in their mind goes back to 2008, they don't realize that Florida isn't really a Democratic state. So with the exception of Barack Obama twice getting barely over 50% and Jimmy Carter getting 51%, as you see, Lyndon Johnson in his big sweep in 1964 in the state of Florida only got 51.14%. Then you see Eisenhower and all that. And then this is back in the Dixiecrat South, FDR 80 years ago. Okay, so if you can see, there's a lot more red there than blue. And when Democrats win, they barely win by a majority. Whereas you have George H.W. Bush in 88 winning by 60%, Reagan winning by 65%, Reagan winning by 55%, Nixon winning by 72%. Okay, so when Democrats do win Florida, it's by a small margin. It's not by a big margin. So it's not as swingy of a state as you assume. I mean, just look at the gubernatorial races, look at the constitutional officers, look at the Florida legislature. Trust me, I've been doing this stuff since 1991 in Florida. Okay, it's not a Democratic state. It's not even really a purple state. It gets purple sometimes in some presidential elections. But I wanted to show those results to kind of lay out how Florida is. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about are the polls that are getting all the attention. So there was a Suffolk University poll out and then a FAU poll out, which was done by Mainstream Marketing or Mainstream Media, who is a Canadian company. They're not even an American company. They're a Canadian company. And I know them from Canadian polls because, you know, my degree up there is from McGill University, so I actually studied Canadian voting behavior. So I'm very familiar with them and was kind of surprised to see them actually doing American polls. But let's go ahead and look at the Suffolk's USA Today poll and talk about how absolute garbage it is. Okay, so let's just go to the horse race really quick just to get an idea of what they're saying. So they say 47 to 42, Donald Trump's going to win. So it's off. Now, first of all, the sample size is small. I'm not going to fault them at that. The sample size is small. But if anybody knows Florida politics, you'll know immediately that classifying Florida or regions of Florida as north, south, east, west is dumb, is stupid. No one ever does that. Okay, Jacksonville, is that north or is that east? Okay, Orlando, is that east or is that west? Okay, Sarasota, is that south or is that west? Okay, Tampa, is that west or is that, I guess that would be west. I don't know. What does this mean? No one in Florida ever says north, south, east, west. You have Panhandle, you have North Florida, you have Central Florida, which sometimes you can break up into the Orlando media market and the Tampa media market. You have Southwest Florida, and then you have South Florida, which is essentially Southeast Florida, usually the big 3 counties down there, but maybe you throw Monroe in there. Maybe you throw Martin in there as well. Usually once you get up into St. Lucie and others, Indian River, they're going to be put more into the Orlando, Central Florida. So by saying north, south, east, west, that doesn't tell me anything. That's like the worst geographical metric that I've seen in Florida politics ever. Okay, I don't even, again, what's Jacksonville? Is that east or is that north? Because it is at the northeast corner of the state. So I don't know where that is. So yeah, so that's a really dumb, I don't know who thought of that. That's extremely bad. But the one thing that you don't see on this, no crosstabs. As I mentioned in my other videos, if you want to tell if a poll is good or shit, look at the crosstabs. That's what we did with the North Carolina poll that I had recently. That's what we went ahead and did with the recent New York Times poll. We looked at the crosstabs and tried to determine from the crosstabs, are these good polls or not? And this has no crosstabs. So the thing is all of this data here, we can't even check to see if it's right or not. I mean, for all I know, out of this number with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Kamala Harris could be winning 75% of white voters and Donald Trump 89% of black voters. I don't know. Now, of course, obviously I'm being facetious and I'm just joking around, but I have no data. I can't say if this is a good poll or not. I can say it's a bad poll because it doesn't have that data. Why not publish your crosstabs? Why not have them out there? They're not out there. This is a shit poll. But this is the first poll that a lot of people were talking about. Now, the second one that came out was the Main Street Research poll here. And with the Main Street Research poll, let's see. I think on the last page, no, they have their methodology on the first page. Methodology seems okay. Nothing seems out of whack with it. But the one thing I found, and remember, I talked about the crosstabs on the first one, how there weren't any crosstabs. We have crosstabs in the FAU poll, but we have no data for the crosstabs. Look at all of the data is just wiped clean. So let's go down to the horse race. Okay, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, another candidate. Who are you going to pick? There's no data. There's nothing in the crosstabs. I've to tell you the truth, and it's like that with every single metric. Like every single metric, nothing in the crosstabs. Why do you even have the crosstabs there? If you just have nothing, I mean, like there's literally nothing in them. The only thing in the crosstabs is unweighed frequency and weighed frequency, which we'll get into in a second. But it shows you had the crosstabs. Why are you hiding what the data is? Because again, I can't tell if your poll is shit or not because I don't have any crosstabs to determine that. Again, Kamala Harris could be winning 75% of white voters and Donald Trump 89% of black voters. I don't know. Again, I'm just joking, but I'm just saying I don't know because the data isn't here. Now, one thing that I do want to mention, and let's go to race here, is when you have to weigh this much, you're not doing a good job with your screening. You obviously are picking from a bad batch of respondents. Now, being a Canadian polling firm, maybe they don't have the pool of people that they can contact. But again, you have the voter file in Florida, which is public, which is broken down. And see, that's another thing too. In the state of Florida, you have voter registration by party. They could have even given us a breakdown of who they contacted as far as party registration, but they don't even provide that. But let's look at this, because this is just so bad. These are the calls they made, the unweighed frequencies, and then they go ahead and weigh them. So the unweighed white college respondents that they got were 429, but then when they weighed them, they brought that number all the way down to 294. Now, 294 would be, if we look at that, would be the would be the right percentage of the overall electorate. The weight part is right, but when you have a sample when your screening makes it that you're phoning over 100 more in this, that's crazy. Non-college white, okay, 323, but then the weight is 431. Okay, for a good poll that has good screening, that has good data, that's able to do their research well, these numbers should be as close to each other as possible. You should have to do minimal weighing. So to me, this says that they are doing a lot of weighing. And again, is that weighing good or not? I don't know, because I don't have the crosstabs. Okay, so all of these polls are just absolute dog shit, because we cannot confirm whatsoever what is happening with them. Okay, so I wanted to first talk about the polls, because the polls are the thing that is driving this excitement about Florida. Well, for all of you who are into the polls are shit. All right. And I'm not saying that because I'm saying it. I'm giving you the reason why they're shit. If one of these had crosstabs, we can compare to crosstabs and see if it looks good, like I did in my North Carolina video and my New York Times Siena poll. Okay. We looked at the crosstabs to see, does this look like a good one or not? We can't do that here. All right. That being the case, let's go ahead and start looking at why Florida is in the predicament that it is. So now we're going to go over to this. I just have an Excel spreadsheet that I wanted to make for this really quick to pop some things up and all that. Now, the one thing I want to show you really quick is that this is the voter registration changes in BC's book closing. So this is basically when the last day that you can register to vote and that those people would be eligible to vote for an election. These are the book closings for the general election in 2008, 2020, and then the most recent book closing for the primaries that we have in Florida for state and local offices, which was on July 22nd. Okay, and this will give you an idea of how far the Democrats have fallen. So as you can see, the Republicans have gone from a little bit over 4 million voters in 2008 to 5.3 million voters now. The Democrats have actually lost 403,000 voters. Now, a lot of people will talk about the purging of the voter roll and all that, and there is some legitimacy in those arguments. I'm not going to deny that, and you'd have to look at that, on your own time and stuff like that. But the thing is that even with that purge, the Democrats have been, just hemorrhaging voter registration, and a lot of them are not being lost to Republicans. It's just that people who register as non-party affiliates or other political parties has just gained so much. So as you can see here, from 2008, when Barack Obama had that historic win, okay, which gave Democrats the highest percentage since Jimmy Carter in '76. Democrats had 42% of the registered voters in the state. Okay, now they're 31.9. This is the reason why Florida has shifted. This is the reason why Ron DeSantis won by as much as he won by. And as you can see, if you look at 2020, okay, so this is the Biden election. It's okay. So this is after the DeSantis-Gillum matchup in 2018. You see the Democrats have still lost a significant amount. The Republicans have still gained a significant amount, and the NPA's went up a little bit, but you can still see, again, the Democrats have just been hemorrhaging voters. Democrats are becoming less and less and less a part of the electorate. Remember, it's only 1%. Can't go up to 110, 120, 130%. If the Republicans go up, Democrats go down in a percentage. That's just how it works. So in this situation, we see that the Democrats are just absolutely hemorrhaging voters. Now, if you want to kind of look at how Democrats are in the state and how they did in 2012, you can go to my votingtrend.com Substack. So, or votingtrend.substack.com. And you can go, if you become one of my paid members, you can actually get a precinct map which details all of the precincts in the state of Florida. So this is a precinct map that you can go and hover over all the precincts. It's the only precinct map out there available to the average person like you and me, and you can also filter. So if you're ever interested in getting a map of the Florida precinct results for the 2022 election, I don't have the other ones, 2022 election, please go join up and you can get that map. But that being the case, I want to talk about something that was in the New York Times a few days ago, and I found it quite interesting. So this on the upshot, recent voter registration data offers hints of enthusiasm for Democrats. So this was basically saying that once Biden dropped out and Kamala Harris came in, that the Democrats started seeing this spike or this change, this trend when it came to more registered voters. Okay, so, and this is in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, that they saw this trend. However, if we go ahead and look at Florida, the trend is not the same. So it doesn't include all the counties. Some counties need to update, but includes the big ones. You know, Broward, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, Orange, Pinellas, and others. There's some missing, like Hillsborough and Duval County. But you can see that Democrats are still third. And these are voter registration numbers since Joe Biden dropped out of the election. Okay. Democrats have not picked up any real new voters because of this shift. And if this number here that we have here is an indication of showing momentum in the state of North Carolina and Pennsylvania, then this number here is definitely showing the opposite, probably showing more momentum for the Republicans. So if we do want to take this information that we have here, we don't see that happening in Florida. So the momentum is not really there. All right. Now, let's go ahead and look at numbers. And let's run a few scenarios when it comes to voting in Florida. Now, there is something that I'm going to talk about voter registration. So we're going to talk about voter registration in connection to vote choice. And I know there are people who are the voting behavior nerds out there who are saying, hey, listen, vote choice and voter registration and voter identification, party identification, they're not the same thing. And I know that. But we can test to see how much one variable can represent another variable. So if we look here at these charts right here, we have two regression analysis, okay? We have, on the left, you see the Democratic Senate vote for Val Demings, the percentage in each precinct, and the number or the percentage of registered Democrats in each precinct. The idea is, as the number of registered Democrats goes up, the votes for Val Demings also goes up. And we want to see how close that relationship is. The same thing for the Republicans on the right-hand side. Now, up at the top right of both of those graphs, you can see the R-squared number. Now, R-squared, if we have 1.0, that's a perfect correlation, okay? In both of these, we have a very high R-squared number of 0.85, okay? And with the Republican one, it's really 0.86. This is very high correlation, which basically means that we can say if somebody's registered a Republican, there's a very high likelihood they're going to vote Republican. Same thing with Democrats. And the good thing is because both of these R-square numbers are absolutely nearly the same, this means that the distribution of independent voters within a precinct is probably going to be similar as well. So if you have a precinct that, 100 Republicans voted for the Republican and 50 Democrats voted for the Democrat, let's just say, then probably the independents that voted would have that 2-to-1 split also. So this gives us a good indication. this gives us an indication that vote choice and party registration are strongly correlated. Okay. And those are all the precincts with over 100 voters, because once we do the ones that have less than 100 voters, it gets a little bit skewed. Like you might have a precinct with one voter who's a registered Democrat, but then they vote Republican. It would change the R squared here because it doesn't look at the amount of votes. It just looks at where the data point is on the chart and how it correlates with all the rest of the data. So in this situation, this basically shows that there's correlation. Now, I want to make that point because I am going to be talking a lot about voter registration, and I want to show that equation of vote choice. Now, let's go ahead and look at the 2008 exit poll by the New York Times. All right. Now, this is a 2008 exit poll that was done, as you can see, and we'll also look at the turnout in 2008. So in 2008, the turnout was 75% in the state of Florida. Okay. If we look at the at how partisan breakdown was when it came to voting, we see 37% of the electorate were Democrats, identified as Democrats. Obama won 87-12. 34% of the electorate were Republicans, same breakdown. And 29% identified as independents, and the breakdown was 52-45. And of course, Obama won this basically 51-48. So he won it by 3%. All right. Now, what we're going to do in our Excel sheet is we're basically going to replicate this exact thing. So what we have is I'm putting, so what we're doing in this is we're using the voter registration numbers today, but with the data back in 2008. So that vote composition and how people voted, we're using that, but we're using it with today's voter registration numbers. Okay. And what we would need to see that. So if we had Harris get 87-12% and Trump get 12-87%, we had the 52-45, and we have 37% of the electorate Democratic, 34% of the electorate Republican, and around 29% independent, which was what we had in the exit poll. This would mean that the Democrats would have to have a 20% higher turnout than Republicans if we want to stay at a 75% turnout rate. That's not going to happen. As a matter of fact, Republicans usually turn out more than Democrats by between, let's say, 4 and 6% when it comes to Florida. That almost is always the case. All right. Now, in this scenario, Harris would win 52-48. Okay. Very, very close to what the Obama number was, but this is major party vote, by the way. But, if we look here, the Republicans are not going to be 20% less than the Democrats. But in order to replicate this, that's what if you want to replicate the composition in which led to Barack Obama's win, you would have to have a total collapse of the Republican vote. And you would have to have the Democrats in an election where there's 75% turnout to have 84% turnout. I don't even think Democrats have ever had an 84% turnout in modern history in Florida, or maybe ever. So that would be historic as well. The Republicans having a 20% gap would also be historic. And the NPAs being at 81, the NPAs being significantly higher than the Republicans as well, would be absolutely unheard of. So if we take the 2008 numbers, it gives us an absolute unrealistic look at what the election would be, because there's not going to be this collapse in the Republican vote. All right, now let's go ahead and go over to 2020. As we can see, 2020. So we're going to replicate the 2020 election again. With today's voter registration numbers, but using the data for 2020. Now, as you can see, it's about 77.17, well, it's exactly 77.17% turnout rate. Now, if we look at party ID, you're going to see some changes. Now, all of a sudden, Republicans are 38%, Democrats are 30%, Independents are 32%. So you see, Democrats have gone from being number one in being the voter composition to being number 3 in voter composition. Okay? That's a big, big shift. And that's what happened in 2020 or 2022 as well with Ron DeSantis and the Republican wave in Florida. Now you can see Biden won more Democrats, 94%. He lost more Republicans, yes, but he actually won the independent vote by 2% more than Barack Obama in 2008. You know, an election Barack Obama got, what, 51% of the vote. But yet Joe Biden lost Florida, right? So we have this 51.22 to 47.86. But yet he won the independent vote. Independent vote numbers are fool's gold in Florida elections. So now let's go ahead and go over to the 2020 spreadsheet and let's replicate this election now. So there we go, 94 to 5, 7 to 93, 54 to 43. In order for us to get the same composition of the vote that we had in this election, Democrats and Republicans would have to be about the same. But with the 54-43, 92% of NPAs would have to turn out to vote. That's not happening. Okay? NPAs aren't going to be over 80. They sure as hell won't be. They sure as hell won't be over 90. All right? So this requires, in order for us to replicate 2024, we need to have an extremely high turnout in NPA voters voting 54 to 43 for Joe Biden. Okay, that's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. So even if it did happen, as you can see, Harris still loses the election 48.8 to 51.2 of the major party votes, right? So this doesn't even give us a winning number. If we replicate 2020, we now lose essentially by the same amount if we put independent voters in there as well. Let me get some water here. All right. So let's take our 2020 numbers and let's fidget with them to get what would be a more likely representation of what we should expect during the election. So we should expect probably, I would say, maybe a 72% turnout maybe for Democrats, 77% for Republicans, and maybe 70. Okay, so let's go 73. And then 78, yeah, 71. There we go. So we're now right at 75% with what I would consider a good distribution with Democrats, with Democrats losing. Okay, so if we take the 2020 numbers, but we make the turnout rates more representative of what they're probably going to be, we see that the Democrats they lose by quite a bit, 47.6 to 52. That's of the major party vote, so that doesn't include third party. That's just the split of those. Now, let's keep this turnout. Let's keep the turnout numbers. Let's go ahead and change the numbers for Harris and Trump. All right, as far as NPA. So let's go ahead and add 6. Add 60. And then 37. Okay. It's getting a little closer. 62, 35. Still don't have it. 64, 33. Okay, so we can go 63, 34. No, we can't. 64, 33. And I'm keeping, there's that little bit of a gap, that few percentage missing because it's what the numbers were in 2020. So I wanted to keep that. So there we go. With the turnout rate that we have, the Democrats would have to essentially have an historic swing in the independent vote by 2 to 1. Democrats are not going to win the independent vote 2-1. It's just not going to happen. But if we look at our turnout rates and what we can expect the turnout rate to be and the distribution to be, well, okay, then that works. But there's no way that the Democrats are going to get 64% of the NPA votes and the Republicans 33%. That's just not a likely scenario. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to our original numbers, 54-43. So now we're not going to change the NPA number. So we already know that a huge swing in the Republican or in the NPA votes, the independents, to the Democrats is highly unlikely. They're not going to go 2-1. So what's the other way that we can see this win? The other way would be for Democratic turnout to go up. So let's just keep the Republicans at 78% turnout. Okay? If we have Democrats now and now we're not going to care about 75%. I had that here because I think it's a good representation of what it would really be. But now we're just going to push that Democratic turnout up. Okay, let's go to 78%. It's not enough. 82%, still not there. 84%, getting a little closer. 85%, boom. Okay, Democrats win it by a little over 1,000 votes. Okay, a little under 1,000 votes. All right. 85% turnout. Democrats have not had 85% turnout in the state of Florida. Okay, so in this case, we're basically saying that Democrats have to have an 8% higher turnout rate than the Republicans. That's not happening. The only way that happens, that it can be lower, let's go down to 80, is if all of a sudden this number goes up much higher. But as you can see, because it's 54-43, not 94-5, let's see, 90, 99, 100. Okay, so you can have 100% turnout of NPAs going 54-43 and have Democrats at an 80% turnout. Okay, 81, 82. Democrats still technically losing there, 83. So that's what the Democrats need to win. If they want to have a turnout rate that's close to the Republican turnout rate, they're going to need to have 100% of independents turn out voting 53 or 54-43 for them. But 100% turnout, and then they can have their turnout rate low. This is what I'm saying. The numbers are not there. The Democrats cannot win because whatever parameter you change, you have to change it to such an extreme that we have never seen in Florida politics. I mean, like 100% NPA turnout at 54-43, okay? Or 86, 87% turnout for Democrats over Republicans. You would have to see unheard of numbers in order for this to happen. Or what? What was it? Of NPA voters, you'd have to see them break 2-1 for the Democrats. That just does not happen. And this is where I'm going to throw down the gauntlet, okay? For all those people out there online talking about how Florida can be won by the Democrats, I presented my data. I went over the polls, talked about how shit they were. I presented my data here, replicated stuff, looked at what our voter registration numbers are now, and I didn't even do like the 100% for Democrats, 100% for Republicans. I took the exit poll numbers from 2020, and if we really want to be honest, that 7% for Harris is probably high. So if we all of a sudden, if we look at our chart here, if I change that to 5 and change that to 95, look at how much that is now. Now all of a sudden, what, 88, 87? Okay, 86. Nope, 87. So Republicans would you'd still have to have 100% NPA turnout, 87% Democratic turnout, and 78% Republican turnout. This is what I'm saying. Throwing down the gauntlet. If you're one of these people who said that Democrats can win Florida, show your data, show your numbers, show your path to victory as to how Democrats can get there, and explain your path to victory. Because this is why I left Democratic politics, particularly Florida Democratic politics, 4 years ago. Because everyone in Florida wanted the data that they liked, not the data that was the truth. And the reason why I left as a data person was because everyone wanted me to fudge the numbers like this in order for their candidate to feel happy about the possibility of them winning. I ethically could not do that. And I would rather leave working in politics than have to stoop so low and hurt my reputation that I have built over time with having the most successful Florida nowcast model in history. I wasn't going to do that. This is why I've left politics. So again, all you out there, all the DNC people, all the people at the Florida Democratic Party, the Matt Isabels out there who are on Twitter, show your data. Show your data. Show the path of victory for the Democrats. Explain that path of victory. Show your correlations of how you expect people to vote. Show it. Show it. That's all I want to say today, because as you can see, this one got me a lot heated because Florida's near and dear to my heart. And I've seen a Democratic Party absolutely destroy that state. And yeah, I just want to say, can it be one in the future? Yes. Democrats have to get off their ass and actually register voters. But it's the biggest grift out there. All right. Thank you all very much. I'll see you all later. Have a wonderful day. We will get into some of the polls. A ton of polls just dropped over the last day, really. So YouGov poll dumped and a few others dumped. And I really want to go over those. I just needed to talk about this Florida thing. I needed to talk about this Florida thing. All right. That's all. See you all later.